Hello my lovelies, I hope you're well today. My name's Sarah Jane Critchley. I'm the author of A Different Joy, The Parent's Guide to Living Better with Autism, Dyslexia, ADHD and more. Today I want to talk to you about the Joyful Mom framework for effective communication. Now the first thing to bear in mind is that communication is not just words. It's about behaviour, it's about your physicality, it's about what you do, it's about how you actually get your message from one person to another, and it requires both parties to participate and to share equally. And you own at least half of that. So if you want to change the way that the communication works, you need to change your part of it first. Okay? So how can you do that? What are you looking at and what is necessary? Let's talk a bit about the mom method. She says, going back to her Brummie roots. Sorry, I don't have a very Brummie accent. Although that might make some of you happy, depending on whether you like it or not. The first thing you need is motive. You need a reason to be able to communicate. You need something that you want to communicate about. So if you're talking about things where the other party has absolutely no interest at all, they're unlikely to be motivated to participate and to communicate with you. If you've ever had one of those conversations where, well, I say conversation loosely, where sort of the point goes from one, instead of having a conversation where it's like a game of tennis, where it goes from one party to the other, to the other, to the other, you're actually having totally parallel and different communication. So what that's communicating is actually you're not sharing that communication, you're just talking over each other or towards each other. And that can be quite tricky, but you have to have something that you want to communicate with. I'm very struck by the fact that Einstein didn't talk until he was 6. And when he was asked, because he was perfectly able to vocalise, he had no physical issues around why he couldn't talk, when he was able to vocalise and when he did speak, they said, well, why didn't you talk before? And he said, I have nothing important to say, which for me sums up that whole motivation. You have to have something to say, whether it's I want to eat something, I need to go out, I'm uncomfortable, get me out of here. The communication, you have to have a motive to communicate that. The second thing you have to have is opportunity. So you have to have the chance, the time and the opportunity to have that communication. And if somebody is not paying attention to what is going on, then you don't have the opportunity to communicate effectively, and often the other party won't feel heard. And much misery in life comes from people not being heard and not being understood. And if you don't provide the opportunity in terms of time and space, and the right time and space, then a person cannot communicate. And that's a really big issue for those who are pre-verbal, because they need more time and they need somebody to actually watch what's happening. Often we'll find that may be the case with our teenagers as well. So you need to have time together in order to be able to communicate. And one of the things that we've done, which is great, I love, is to have parallel time. So if you're going to talk about something that's really difficult, even with somebody who's got really good verbal skills, if you do it where you're actually face to face and looking at them, it's all too intense. It's far too intense and the communication's got too much content in it. If you are doing something parallel to each other, you're working on something together, maybe you're clearing up after dinner in the kitchen, or you're on a long car trip. I love car trips with good conversations. Then it gives the opportunity, the time and the space to have a better conversation around there. I can give you an example of getting it really wrong, because I'm quite good at getting things wrong as well. And it's fine to get things wrong as long as you revisit and learn. I had some information I had to get out to one of my children shortly before they left for school. And unfortunately, I chose about 5 minutes before they were due to walk out of the door to drop a really difficult suggestion onto them. Not my finest moment, I have to say. And when I talked it through with one of my other child, they pointed out that actually making a suggestion that was quite difficult for them to do, that was when they were rushing to get out the door, that had been sprung on them, that there was no introduction, that there was no context, I hadn't prepared them for it, was utterly unhelpful. So when they got back, I apologised and we talked it through after they'd had the air gap time to allow them to recover and kind of calm down from the day, and then it was fine. We put the action into place and it was all okay. But you have to allow that opportunity. And one of the other aspects of opportunity is opportunity to have the means to communicate with. So if you're very verbal, you might not be if life is challenging and if you're overwhelmed and if there's too much going on. So I was very struck that often one of the things that we do when life gets a bit difficult is that we communicate by text or emails. So you don't have to physically talk to each other in order to communicate. And I was on a stand with on a stage with the lovely John Simpson, who's autistic. He was describing how when he's working really hard for his exams and he's feeling really overwhelmed, he would send a text to his dad saying, "Can I have a cup of tea and a biscuit?" And his dad would hove over the come into his room and bring a cup of tea and a biscuit. It works really well. It's fantastic. It doesn't matter which method you use, which means you use, as long as it works for both parties. And for our non-verbal and pre-verbal friends, we need to have other ways of communicating. And that may be physically. I know that if my kids are feeling really stressed, I'll look at how tense their eyes are. You can see it in their shoulders. It's often in their physicality that you'll see that. It's not in what they will say. If they've had a really rough day, they will not come and immediately say, "Oh, I had a really rough day and this happened." They don't do that. But they will slam doors, they will be really tense, they will be eating chocolate that they bought on the way home. All of those things are actually ways of communicating. And it's really, really important to use a means of communication that works for both parties, that works for the party who you're trying to communicate with. Because if you don't use what they like to communicate with, you're not going to be able to communicate with them. If you have this kind of broadcast mode, I remember my father, God bless him, love him desperately, but he did have this broadcast mode where he would just talk over and over and on, and after a while it kind of came like that bit out of Charlie Brown, which was an American cartoon where all the adults went and you couldn't hear it. You can't, if there are too many words, you can't take in everything that's said. So the main message is slow it down, use the means of communication that somebody else needs, be prepared to get it wrong, and keep trying. Do it over and over again. It's fine. You'll get lots of practice, work out what works for your family, and stick with it. I hope that's been helpful for you. I look forward to speaking to you soon. So if you come to this any other way than through my Different Joy Club, then please by all means sign up. It's at www.differentjoy.com/ADJ Club. And my name is Sarah Jane Critchley. I'm here to help you speak your truth, honour your struggle, and help you to live a happier life of your own choosing. Take care. Speak to you soon. Bye.